Hey everyone! Before we jump into today's story, I've got a quick shout out. If you love gripping tales like the one you're about to hear, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single upload. We're diving into the Mercy Collapse, a nightmare so intense it'll stick with you long after the screen goes dark. Drop your city in the comments below. I'm curious where you're joining us from. And let's get started. Here we go. Picture this. It's a cold October night in Cleveland, the kind where the wind rattles the windows and the streets empty out early. I'm Lucas Tran, an ICU nurse with 9 years under my belt, and I'm pulling the graveyard shift at St. Jude's Hospital. The date's October 17th, and I've been on duty about 4 hours, surrounded by the usual hum of machines, beeping monitors, whirring ventilators, the soundtrack of lives hanging in the balance. We've got 8 patients that night, a mix of critical cases, including 4 in medically induced comas. It's routine, predictable, the kind of shift I've run 1,000 times. But looking back, I should have seen the cracks forming. It's around 1:30 a.m., and I'm at the nurse's station, hunched over charts, scribbling updates in the dim glow of the desk lamp. The antiseptic sting of the unit's air is sharp as ever, blending with the faint coffee smell from the break room. My coworker, Ellie Parker, a rookie nurse with barely 6 months on the job, is checking vitals down the hall. The unit's quiet, too quiet, maybe, but I chalk it up to the late hour. Then Ellie's voice cuts through, tight and urgent. "Lucas, you need to see this. Room 5, Mr. Carter, something's wrong." I drop my pen and head over, boots squeaking on the polished floor. Mr. Carter's been in a coma for a month, a factory worker who took a bad fall and cracked his skull. Stable, no surprises, until now. Ellie's standing by his bed, staring at the EEG screen. "Look," she says, pointing. His brain activity's spiking. It's like he's awake, but his vitals, they're a mess. Temp's climbing fast. I lean in, and she's right. The lines on the monitor are jumping, jagged peaks where there should be flat calm. His heart rate's pushing 130, blood pressure spiking, and his skin's hot to the touch, 104, maybe higher. I grab his chart, scanning for anything, med changes, infections, nothing fits. Then I notice it. His skin's gone ashen, a grayish tint creeping across his face like frost on a windshield. Sweat beads on his forehead, but the room's a steady 68 degrees. This isn't right. I mutter, reaching for his wrist to check his pulse old school. Before I can touch him, his eyes snap open, bloodshot, pupils shrunk to dots, like he's staring through me. Ellie gasps, stepping back. "Lucas." His hand shoots up, clamping my arm with a grip that shouldn't be possible for a guy who's been out cold for weeks. His nails dig in, breaking skin, and I feel the strength. Raw, unhuman. His mouth twists into a snarl, teeth bared, sharper than they should be, like they've grown edges overnight. "Code Gray," I shout, wrenching free as Ellie stumbles toward the door. "Room 5, Code Gray now." It's the call for a violent patient, a rare one in ICU, but security's our only shot. The monitors go haywire, alarms screaming, numbers redlining. Mr. Carter lunges, ripping out his 4 and breathing tube in one fluid jerk. Blood sprays across the sheets, dark and thick, splattering my scrubs. I shove Ellie toward the hall, "Get help," and grab the crash cart, slamming it between us like a shield. He's up now, tearing off the last of his lines, wires snapping like they're nothing. Those eyes lock on me, empty but alive, and I swear there's no soul left in them, just hunger. I backpedal, heart hammering, as he swings around the cart with a speed that defies his condition. I dodge, barely, and he crashes into the wall, cracking the drywall. That's when the other alarms kick off. Room 3, Room 7, Room 8, all at once. Through the glass partitions, I see it spreading. Mrs. Delaney in 3, a stroke patient, convulsing so hard her bed shakes. Mr. Reyes in 7, a cardiac case, sits up, blood streaming from where he's clawed out his chest tube. Ellie's at the station now, slamming the phone, yelling for security, but I know it's too late. Mr. Carter charges again, and I sidestep, shoving the cart into him. It slows him, but not much. He's a freight train with no brakes. The unit's a madhouse now, alarms blaring, wet ripping sounds as patients tear free of their machines, growls rolling through the air that shouldn't come from human throats. I sprint for the station, yelling, "Lock it down. Ellie, Lisa, security doors now." Lisa and Gwen, our charge nurse, burst from the break room, eyes wide but hands steady. She hits the emergency lockdown button, and the heavy steel doors start their slow grind shut. Through the main window, I see Dr. Patel jogging toward us, probably responding to the code gray. "Stay back," I shout, but he's too far, too late. Mr. Carter's out of room 5 now, moving like a predator, all grace and menace. The doors are halfway down, 30 seconds, maybe less, but the infected are faster. Mrs. Delaney's free, staggering toward us, and Mr. Reyes is right behind her, blood dripping from his hands. "Medroom," I yell, grabbing Ellie's arm. It's our best shot. Lisa's already moving, key card out, leading us to the medication room, a fortress with a solid door and 1 entry. We've got seconds. Mr. Carter's closing the gap, his snarl echoing over the chaos. Lisa swipes the card. Once, twice, it slips, then catches. The lock clicks, and we pile in, slamming it shut as Mr. Carter's fists pound the steel. The hinges groan, but it holds. Through the small window, I see his face pressed against the glass, teeth gnashing, blood smearing with every snap. "Oh God! Oh God!" Ellie whispers, sinking to the floor, her scrubs streaked with Carter's blood. "Get it together," Lisa snaps, though her voice wavers. "Lucas, what is this? What's happening to them?" I don't have answers, just a racing pulse and a sinking feeling. Then Dr. Patel's voice cuts through from outside. "Nurse Tran, Nurse Parker, what's going on?" I shout back, "Stay out there," but it's useless. Mrs. Delaney's on him, lunging from the shadows, teeth sinking into his neck. His scream pierces the unit, and Mr. Carter joins in, tearing at him like a pack animal. The wet, ripping sound turns my stomach, and I look away. Ellie's sobbing now, Lisa's pale as death, and the chaos outside ramps up. More growls, more alarms. I grab the medroom phone, busy signal. "Cell's dead too, no bars." "Mine's out," Lisa says, then holds up her screen. Emergency alerts flash, shelter in place. Avoid medical facilities. Multiple incidents citywide. Do not approach infected individuals. Citywide. Ellie whispers, voice breaking. "This isn't just us." The PA crackles. "Code black, ER. Code black. All security respond." This is not a drill. Mass casualties. Then another. Code silver, ground floor. Lockdown procedures now. Active threat. It's spreading fast. Weapons, I say, scanning the room. We need something. It's a med room, not an armory, but we improvise. Scissors, a scalpel. Lisa grabs a metal 4-pole from a corner. Ellie's still shaky, but she stands when the next sound hits. Screams, faint but clear, echoing through the vents. The ventilation, Lisa says, staring at the ceiling grate. It's spreading through the ducts. We grab tape, gauze, anything, to seal it, hands trembling as the noise grows. Then a new sound, thumping, rhythmic, louder every second. Helicopter blades. "Help," Ellie asks, but Lisa shakes her head. "Maybe." Automatic gunfire follows, not security pistols, but military-grade bursts. The building shakes, an explosion close. Smoke curls up through the floor vents. "We can't stay," I say. "No food, no water. This won't hold forever." I pull up the hospital map on my phone while it's still got juice. We're 4th floor. Service elevators are out, loading dock level. Needs a maintenance key, though. Lisa nods. Charge office has it. But that's through the ICU. Another boom rocks us, lights flickering. The infected outside growl louder, frenzied. "They're bombing it," Ellie whispers. "Trying to stop it." She's right. Time's up. I grip my scissors like a lifeline. We move slow, quiet. Use the rooms for cover. Keys in the charge office. Top drawer, under the binder. We get it, we go. The window shows a war zone. Blood on the walls. Infected prowling. Patients still strapped in beds, flatlining one by one. I press my ear to the door. The growls have shifted. Far end of the unit. "Now," I whisper, turning the handle. The smell hits first. Blood. Rot. Something wrong that shouldn't be this strong so soon. We step out, low and silent, into a nightmare that's just beginning. The med room door clicked shut behind us, but the sound felt like a gunshot in the stillness of the ICU. The air hit me hard, thick with blood and decay, a stench that clawed at my throat and turned my stomach. St. Jude's was dying, its sterile halls now a slaughterhouse, and we were stepping back into it with nothing but scissors, a scalpel, and an 4-pole. Lucas Tran, ICU nurse, 9 years on the clock. None of that mattered now. All I had was Ellie Parker and Lisa Nguyen, 2 colleagues turned comrades, and a slim chance to get us out alive. "Stay low," I whispered, crouching against the wall. "Move slow, no noise." Ellie nodded, her breath shaky but her grip tight on the scalpel. Lisa clutched the 4-pole like a spear, her eyes darting to every shadow. The nurse's station was 15 feet ahead, the charge office 10 more, 25 feet of hell between us and the maintenance key. Through the flickering emergency lights, I could see the infected prowling, their jerky movements cutting through the chaos of blaring alarms and distant screams. We edged along the wall, stepping over shattered glass and tangled for lines slick with blood. The floor was a minefield. Every crunch threatened to give us away. I kept my eyes on Mr. Carter, last seen tearing into Dr. Patel. He was at the far end now, hunched over something. Or someone, his growls wet and guttural. Mrs. Delaney shuffled nearby, her hospital gown shredded, blood streaking her graying skin. They hadn't spotted us yet. Good. A crash from room 6 froze us mid-step. Mr. Reyes was at it, clawing at a patient still strapped to the bed, Mrs. Coleman, a diabetic coma case. Her monitor flatlined, a long, piercing tone slicing through the unit. The noise pulled heads. Carter snapped up, Delaney's too, their blank eyes scanning. We pressed flat against the wall as 2 more infected stumbled past. A patient in torn scrubs, another in a security vest, his badge dangling by a thread. They lurched toward room 6, drawn like flies to the sound. "Almost there," I mouthed, pointing to the station. The counter loomed ahead, papers scattered, a phone off the hook buzzing uselessly. We were close, 5 feet, when Ellie's foot brushed a fallen syringe. The clatter was soft, barely audible over the alarms, but in that moment, it was a thunderclap. Every infected head swiveled, their snarls rising in unison. For a heartbeat, we were statues, locked in place. Then they moved. "Run," I hissed, shoving Ellie toward the charge office. Lisa swung her pole, catching Mrs. Delaney across the jaw as she lunged. The crack bought us a second, and we sprinted, diving through the office's ajar door. "Help me." I grabbed a filing cabinet, dragging it across the threshold with Lisa's help. It slammed into place just as Mr. Carter hit the door, the frame shuddering under his weight. The glass window rattled, his blood-smeared face pressing against it, teeth snapping inches from us. "Key," Lisa barked, rifling through the desk. I scanned the room, Gloria's office, our charge nurse, her meticulous chaos everywhere. Schedules, pens, a coffee mug still warm. "Top right drawer," I said, under the binder. The infected pounded harder, the cabinet shifting with each blow. More were joining. Reyes, Delaney, shadows crowding the window. "Got it." Lisa held up the maintenance key, a small victory in the madness. A wet cough snapped us around. In the corner, half hidden by a coat rack, was Gloria herself. Her scrubs were soaked dark, her skin a sickly gray, blood dripping from her mouth. "Gloria?" Ellie stepped forward, voice trembling. "Oh God, are you?" Gloria's head jerked up, eyes wrong, pupils pinpricks in a sea of red. She lunged, faster than Carter, faster than anything human should be, her teeth bared in a snarl. I moved on instinct, scissors raised, tackling her midair. We hit the floor hard, her nails raking my arm as I wrestled her back. "Lucas!" Lisa swung the four-pole, smashing it into Gloria's side. She rolled off, but recovered in a blink, scrambling across the floor like a spider. Ellie screamed as Gloria lunged again, and I drove the scissors into her neck, clean, deep. She collapsed, twitching once, then still. The silence was deafening, broken only by the infected hammering the door. I stared at her body, my hands slick with her blood, fighting the bile in my throat. 9 years working beside her. Charts, late-night chats, her dry humor, and I'd just killed her. She was gone, Lisa said softly, pulling me up. Like the others. Ellie's hand on my shoulder brought me back. "Lucas, we've got to move." Another explosion rocked the building, closer, dust raining from the ceiling. The lights flickered, plunging us into darkness for a split second. When they flared back, smoke curled through the vents, thick, acrid. "Break room," I said, forcing focus. "Back hallway connects there." "We can't stay." The filing cabinet groaned, sliding an inch. Time was up. We slipped through the connecting door, the break room a snapshot of yesterday. Microwave humming, a half-eaten sandwich on the table. The emergency lights cast a red glow, smoke drifting from the lower floors. "Service elevators 2 floors down," I whispered, orienting myself. "Backstairs are our shot." A scream echoed up, sharp and human, followed by pounding feet. A nurse, Jenny from Peds, burst around the corner, her scrubs blood-soaked, eyes wild. "Help!" she cried, reaching for us. Behind her came the infected, not patients this time, but kids. 3 of them, small and fast, bite marks fresh on their arms. Jenny was already turning, gray skin creeping up her neck. They caught her before we could blink, dragging her down in a flurry of tiny hands and snapping teeth. "This way," I hissed, pulling Ellie and Lisa into a supply closet as Jenny's screams turned guttural, hungry. We pressed into the dark, peering through the slats. The kids raced past, their new recruit trailing, her transformation complete. "Those were children," Ellie sobbed, voice breaking. "Just kids, not anymore," Lisa said, her tone flat, final. She was right. Through the gaps, I saw more, staff, patients, some fresh-turned, others twitching like their bodies were breaking apart. The infection was evolving, spreading through St. Jude's like wildfire. The hall cleared, and we slipped out, heading for the stairwell. A bloody handprint marked the door, movement echoing below, growls, shuffling. "Stairs are hot," Lisa whispered. "Too many." I was about to argue when the PA crackled, loud and jarring. "This is Colonel Daniel Reese, Ohio National Guard. Facility compromised. Protocol Omega in 15 minutes. All personnel evacuate now. Final warning." Another explosion, huge, shaking the walls. Through a window, I saw a chopper circling, spotlights slicing through smoke billowing from the ER. "Protocol Omega?" Ellie asked, voice trembling. "They're torching it," I said, realization sinking in. "Burning the infection out before it hits Cleveland." Gunfire erupted below, automatic, heavy, paired with the whoosh of flamethrowers. The air heated up fast. "Maintenance shaft," I said suddenly. "Runs parallel to the elevator, ladder to the loading dock. Through radiology." Lisa nodded. "Where?" "Behind the MRI suite," I said. "Let's move." We darted through the corridors, muscle memory guiding us past familiar turns. Radiology was a ghost town. Hulking machines silent, shadows stretching long under the red lights. The access panel was there, behind the MRI, but it needed tools we didn't have. A growl stopped us cold. Dr. Ellis, head of radiology, stepped from behind an X-ray machine, his coat in tatters, black ichor dripping from his mouth. His movements were slow, deliberate, different from the others. Smarter. They're adapting, Lisa breathed. Ellis tilted his head, a grotesque smile spreading as more emerged, his staff fanning out like a pack. They'd learned to hunt. Run. I shoved Ellie and Lisa toward the suite as they charged. We weaved through equipment, toppling carts and trolleys to slow them. The panel loomed, solid, stubborn. Here. Lisa grabbed a fire extinguisher, slamming it against the hinges. Ellis closed in, his team spreading wide, cutting off angles. I braced against the panel as Lisa swung again. The metal screeched, gave way. Go. I pushed Ellie through, then Lisa, diving in as Ellis's fingers grazed my back. The shaft was tight, emergency strips casting deep shadows. The ladder dropped into darkness, hot air rushing up with screams and the crackle of fire. Down, I said, steadying my voice. Quick, careful, don't look back. We started descending, the infected pounding the panel above. It wouldn't hold long, but it didn't need to. The loading dock was our lifeline. If we could reach it before the flames did. The maintenance shaft swallowed us whole, a narrow tunnel of shadow and heat that pressed in like a vice. The emergency strips flickered, casting jagged red lines across the ladder as we descended, rung by rung, into the belly of St. Jude's Hospital. I led the way, scissors clutched in one sweaty hand, the other gripping the metal, hot enough to sting but not yet burning. Ellie followed, her breathing ragged but steady, scalpel tucked into her scrubs. Lisa brought up the rear, her pole slung over her shoulder like a makeshift rifle. Above us, the infected hammered the radiology access panel, their growls echoing down the shaft like a death knell. Keep moving, I whispered, voice low but firm. Loading docks 2 floors down. Don't stop. The air was thick, choking with smoke and the faint tang of gasoline. Fire was eating through the lower levels, and fast. Cleveland was burning outside, but in here, it was personal. 9 years in this hospital, saving lives, and now I was fighting to save my own, and theirs. A thunderous crash split the silence. The panel above gave way. I glanced up, catching silhouettes against the opening, their eyes glinting like feral cats. Dr. Ellis led them, his shredded coat flapping as he peered down, that awful smile still carved across his face. Faster, I hissed, doubling my pace. The infected didn't hesitate. They climbed, skittering down the ladder with a speed that turned my stomach. Their coordination was sloppy, limbs jerking, but they were relentless. The shaft grew hotter, smoke curling past us in dark tendrils. Flames crackled below, their orange glow licking through the grates at the bottom. Lucas, Ellie yelped as a hand, gray, claw-like, brushed her leg. One of them, a radiology tech in a shredded smock, had closed the gap. I swung down, driving my scissors into its wrist. It shrieked, a sound too human and not human enough, and lost its grip, tumbling into the inferno below. The heat flared as it hit, a burst of light illuminating the shaft. Loading dock door, Lisa pointed, her voice cutting through the haze. 15 feet below, a rusted sign read LD, loading dock. The ladder shook under our weight, and theirs. More infected poured in above, Ellis directing them with that eerie calm. They're too close, Ellie panted, her hands slipping on the rungs. We won't. We will. I snapped, shoving her toward the door. Lisa, get it open. She dropped to the platform, wrestling with the handle, stiff, scalding. I turned, scissors up, as the tech's partner lunged. A woman, her face half melted from some earlier wound. I caught her midair, slamming her against the wall. She clawed at my arm, teeth snapping, but I drove the blade into her temple. She went limp, sliding down into the fire. It stuck, Lisa yelled, pounding the door. Smoke billowed thicker now, stinging my eyes, choking my lungs. Ellie coughed, doubling over, but grabbed the fore-pole, jamming it into the latch. Together, I barked, joining them. We heaved. Once, twice. The metal groaned, then popped free. Black smoke poured in, nearly blinding us, but we stumbled through, slamming the door as Ellis's shadow hit the platform above. The loading dock was a battlefield, emergency strobes pulsing through the haze, water from the sprinklers pooling ankle-deep, red with blood and ash. Military figures in hazmat suits moved like ghosts at the bay doors, shouting orders over the roar of flames. This way, one waved, directing a huddle of survivors toward a truck. Others wielded flamethrowers, carving fiery walls to hold back the infected spilling from the hospital's depths. We splashed through the muck, lungs burning, when Ellie screamed. I spun. Lisa had tripped, her leg caught on a crate. Blood seeped through her scrubs, a bite mark, fresh, on her calf. No, I breathed, kneeling beside her. Her skin was already graying, veins darkening beneath. Go, she shouted, shoving Ellie toward the exit. I'm done, get out. Lisa, we can. Ellie started, reaching, but I grabbed her arm. She's right. Lisa's eyes were shifting, the humanity draining fast. Thank you, she rasped, voice roughening into a growl. For everything. Then she turned, staggering back into the smoke, drawing a pack of infected with her. Her last scream twisted into something primal, pulling them away from us. Move! The soldier's voice snapped me back. He fired his flamethrower, covering our retreat as we ran. Protocol Omega in 2 minutes. We reached the truck, a military transport, survivors packed inside, faces blank with shock. I pushed Ellie in, climbing after her as the engine roared to life. Through the rear flap, I watched St. Jude's implode. Explosions ripping through the walls, a funeral pyre of flame and debris swallowing the place I'd called home. The truck lurched forward, weaving through Cleveland's chaos. Checkpoints flashed by, soldiers in riot gear, infected pinned down with ruthless precision. Ellie gripped my hand, her knuckles white, tears cutting tracks through the soot on her face. She's gone, she whispered. Lisa's gone. I nodded, throat tight. She saved us. We hit a secure zone outside the city, an old warehouse turned triage center. Hazmat teams hustled us through Deccan showers, cold water blasting away blood and ash. They locked us in quarantine, a stark room with cots and armed guards at every door. That's where I sit now, scribbling this on a clipboard they gave us, trying to make sense of it all. They're calling it the Cleveland breach on the crackling radios. Contained, they say, stopped at St. Jude's. But I know better. I saw how fast it spread, how it changed them, patients, staff, friends, into something else. The guards watch us like hawks, rifles ready, checking us hourly for signs. They're waiting, same as me, for the other shoe to drop. Sometimes, in the quiet stretches between the hum of generators, I hear it. Faint screams on the wind, growing closer. The infected are still out there, evolving, hunting. I've looked into those eyes, empty, ravenous, learning, and I know this isn't over. Not even close. The quarantine room was a concrete box, cold, gray, lit by harsh fluorescence that buzzed like a swarm of flies. I sat on a cot, clipboard balanced on my knee, pen scratching out the last of what I'd seen at St. Jude's Hospital. Lucas Tran, ICU nurse, 9 years of saving lives, now reduced to this. A survivor scribbling a nightmare while the world outside burned. Ellie Parker sat across from me, knees pulled to her chest, staring at the steel door like it might burst open any second. We'd made it out of Cleveland's inferno, but the cost was carved into us. Lisa and Wynn's sacrifice, the faces of patients and friends turned monsters, the weight of a city collapsing. It had been 12 hours since the military truck hauled us from the loading dock, through streets choked with smoke and gunfire, to this makeshift outpost 10 miles west of Cleveland. Deccan had stripped us raw, ice-cold showers blasting off blood and ash, medics in hazmat suits poking and prodding, checking every inch for bites. They'd cleared us, locked us in here with a dozen others, nurses, a janitor, a couple of yard docs, all shell-shocked, all waiting. The guards outside paced, rifles slung low, their eyes flicking to us through the narrow window like we were bombs ticking down. "They say it's over," Ellie whispered, breaking the silence. Her voice was hoarse, cracked from smoke and tears. "Radios keep calling it the Cleveland breach. Contained at St. Jude's, they say." She hugged her knees tighter, her scrubs still damp from Deccan. "You believe them?" I didn't answer right away, just kept writing. Mr. Carter's snarl, "Gloria's blood on my hands, Lisa's last stand." The words anchored me, kept the panic from swallowing me whole. "No," I said finally, meeting her gaze. "I saw how fast it spread, Ellie. How it changed them. They're not telling us everything." Her eyes darkened, but she nodded. We'd both looked into those infected stares, empty, hungry, learning. This wasn't some fluke to be burned out and forgotten. A speaker crackled overhead. "All personnel, remain calm. Quarantine protocol in effect. Updates pending." The voice was flat, robotic, but the guards tensed every time it spoke. One of them, a young guy, barely 20, kept glancing at his watch, then at us, his finger twitching near the trigger. "They're scared," I muttered, waiting for something. Ellie shifted, pulling a folded photo from her pocket. A grainy shot of her and Lisa from last Christmas, arms around each other, grinning in ugly sweaters. "She saved us," she said, voice breaking. "Ran back into that hell so we could make it." I nodded, throat tight. She was tough as nails. Always was. Lisa's last words echoed in my head. "Thank you for everything." Before that growl took her. I'd lost people before, patients mostly, but this was different. This cut deeper. The room stirred as a new sound filtered through, a low rumble, rhythmic, growing louder. "Helicopter blades." "Evac," a doctor across the room asked, hope flickering in his tired eyes. But the gunfire that followed wasn't controlled bursts. It was frantic, automatic, punctuated by shouts and something else. Screams, guttural and wrong. Ellie's head snapped up. "That's not evac." I stood, moving to the window slit. Outside, the warehouse lot was chaos. Soldiers sprinting, floodlights swinging wild, flames licking the horizon where Cleveland smoldered. A hazmat team dragged a stretcher, a body thrashing against restraints, gray skin gleaming under the lights. "They're here," I said, stepping back. "It's not contained." The door burst open, a guard barking. "On your feet. Move now." We scrambled, herded into a line as they shoved us down a corridor. The walls shook, an explosion, close, rattling my teeth. "What's happening?" Ellie demanded, but the guard just pushed her forward. "Outbreak breach. Perimeter's down. Transport's your only shot." We spilled into a loading bay, a Black Hawk waiting, blades spinning hot. Soldiers fired into the dark beyond the fence, shapes lunging. Too fast, too many. "In," the guard yelled, shoving us aboard. I grabbed Ellie's hand, pulling her up as the chopper lifted, the ground dropping away fast. Through the open side, I saw it, the infected swarming the warehouse, tearing through the line. A soldier went down, flamethrower flaring uselessly as they piled on. "Cleveland's lost," the pilot shouted over the comms. "Heading to fallback, Columbus. Hold tight." The city shrank beneath us, a patchwork of fire and smoke, military choppers circling like vultures. Ellie clutched the photo, tears streaking her face. "They lied," she said. "It's everywhere." I nodded, staring at the horizon. The infected weren't just patients anymore. Staff, soldiers, kids, evolving with every kill. Dr. Ellis's smile flashed in my mind, that calculated hunger. They were adapting, spreading beyond St. Jude's, beyond Cleveland. My hand brushed the clipboard, still tucked in my jacket. Proof of what I'd seen, what they wouldn't admit. The chopper banked south, the night swallowing us. A soldier across from me coughed, a wet hack that made my gut twist. Ellie's eyes met mine, wide with the same fear. "You okay?" I asked, voice steady but sharp. He waved me off, but his skin, pale, slick, looked wrong. The guard beside him shifted, hand on his rifle, watching. Hours later, we touched down in Columbus. A sprawling base ringed with razor wire and floodlights. They split us up, more decking, more checks. The soldier from the chopper didn't make it past the gate, gray veins creeping up his neck, a single shot ending it before he turned. They locked me in a new cell, alone this time, a fresh clipboard shoved through the slot. "Write it all down," a voice ordered. "Everything." So here I am, pen moving, recounting every snarl, every death. Ellie's in another room. I saw her through a window, scribbling too, her photo taped to the wall. The guards don't talk, but their eyes say plenty: fear, exhaustion, doubt. Radios buzz with fragments. Outbreaks in Akron, Dayton, containment failing, new strain detected. It's not over. It's barely begun. Last night, the power flickered, and in the dark, I heard it, screams, faint, carried on the wind from somewhere beyond the wire. The infected are out there, hunting, growing smarter. I've seen what they become, how they learn. St. Jude's was just the spark. This is the fire, and it's spreading fast. I don't know if they'll let us out, if Columbus will hold, if there's anywhere left to run. But I'll keep writing, keep fighting, because that's what nurses do. We hold the line, even when it's breaking. Ellie's photo of Lisa sits in my mind, a reminder. We survive for each other. Whatever comes next, I'll face it head on. The infected might be evolving, but so are we. And there you have it, folks, the full saga of the Mercy collapse. Lucas and Ellie's fight kept us on edge, didn't it? If you love this, don't miss out. Subscribe now, so we can keep bringing you stories like these. What did you think? Drop your reactions in the comments, tell me your city, and let's see how far this tale's traveled. Hit that like button if it gave you chills, share it with your crew, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay safe out there. Thanks for watching.